Now, good morning. Happy Thursday, PSW staff, clients, friends joining us. Yesterday we looked at the great Jackie Wilson. How much fun was that? He's just brilliant. He was a brilliant performer. And it was going on right at the same time as Sam Cooke, but not the same style of music. They were still friends, but it was interesting to see how Sam Cooke went one direction, Jackie Wilson went a little bit more in a raw direction that James Brown would really pick up a lot. And yeah, so that was good. And then tomorrow we see your film scoring results for Spider-Man. That's going to be exciting. So today I was thinking of redoing an LA history class that we had done, and I was wondering which day we should do it, and I was like, Dodger Stadium might be good. And then when I was planning this, I realized that actually today is opening day of Dodger Stadium. Tonight is the first home game. So then why not, this would be a perfect time to do Dodger Stadium, right? I mean, I don't know why I'm asking you. There's no answer, but yes, I want to hear you guys say yes. Because I wanted to replay this class anyway, because now that we know so much more about LA history, it's going to make a lot more sense. We know about the land that was there. We're going to hear the story, the terrible story of Chavez Ravine. When I was rewatching the class that we did, this was like 2 years ago, there's just a lot of stuff that we've learned. So maybe we can, jump back in. So I'm gonna say a few things after the class, but let's look at good old Dodger Stadium. Dodger Stadium is the largest stadium in baseball, and it holds 56,000 fans, and it's one of the largest, most popular examples of mid-century modernism. It has its own zip code, 90090. So there's some cool facts about it, and we'll also talk about a musical component, an element to this class, but you'll have to wait. That'll be a little bit later. So first, let's get into the history of the beautiful Dodger Stadium. So most of us know that the Dodgers originated in Brooklyn, right? So in 1958, there was, I don't know, but there was some political dealings with the owner and New York State, with the owner Walter O'Malley, and he was trying to negotiate. So it didn't work out. So he decided in the end of '58, in the middle of '58, to take the team to Los Angeles. Los Angeles was, pretty well established as a metropolis city for sure. The area that they were attracted to at first was an area that's still called Chavez Ravine. And Chavez Ravine was mostly, probably all composed of Mexican Americans. And it's not the best story, but it's a story that probably most people know, and it's probably, you could imagine what's probably going to happen. But Chavez Ravine was named after Julian Chavez, and he was a rancher and assistant mayor and a city councilman. And in 1844, he started buying up land, and he bought up this beautiful chunk of land with these hills. And Chavez Ravine was a real tight-knit community, and it's a very rare example of like a small-town community, small-town life in this large urban metropolis where downtown's only a few miles away. But this little community, for decades, it had its own schools and churches, and people would grow food on their own land. So it was completely self-sufficient in that way. Of course, other people saw this as a slum, and we won't get into the racial and political under and overtones and all those things. But so around 50, in the mid 50s, they want to make it into these, this great massive public housing project, and they want to call it Elysian Park Heights. Well, that doesn't, and they promise the residents that they can return to the housing once they finish building these things. Well, they never got built, and yeah, on May 9th, 1959, bulldozers and sheriffs arrived, and they started just kicking these people out of their homes, and sometimes using force with them because they refused to give up their land. So not to get too morose, but yeah, it's very, I mean, I guess it's like, at least they didn't kill them, right? I mean, probably in the old days they would probably just get out of my way, and we'll kill you. So I guess that's a good thing, but it's still very sad. And speaking of 1959, for some reason this year has come up a lot, right, for us. If you remember, 1959 is when Ben-Hur came out. And also, what else came out? The most famous jazz album, Kind of Blue, comes out in 1959. So when you think of it kind of globally, Italy, they're shooting Ben-Hur in Italy, comes out in 1959, probably the biggest movie in the world up to that point. Kind of Blue, the most influential jazz record, comes out in 59 in New York City. They record it. And then now, 1959 in LA, the biggest, largest stadium's being built. So just to put things in kind of perspective of what we've been learning about these last few weeks and months, kind of interesting. But so the residents called that Black Friday because that's when it was such an unfortunate, they lost their neighborhood. And so 1962, Dodger Stadium opens up. And April 10th, 1962, they have their opening game. So let's move away from LA and let's go to New York for a second. And we're going to go back a few decades before Dodger Stadium. We're going to talk about a song that was written, and it's probably one of the most famous songs in the world. I think it is the third most famous, behind Star Spangled Banner and Happy Birthday. But it's the third most famous song, and that's Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd.
Take Me Out to the Ball Game was written in 1908 in New York by these two guys that had never been to a baseball game. And it wouldn't be used until 1934 at a real baseball game. So for decades, it was just kind of like, it was laying around. And the story is this guy, Jack Norworth, wrote the lyrics. And he was riding the subway and he saw this thing that said Baseball Today, Polo Grounds. And he got inspired and in 15 minutes wrote the lyrics, brought it back to his partner, Albert von Tilzer, and he wrote the music. And very quickly they became the official anthem of North American baseball. And we talked about the Tin Pan Alley style, and that's New York, early 20th century, early Broadway music, where you would go in and buy sheet music or sell sheet music, and there would be songs. So we talked about George M. Cohan 2 weeks ago, who did Yankee Doodle Dandy. That's early Tin Pan Alley music. We talked about George Gershwin. So a lot of composers, Irving Berlin, a lot of composers were Tin Pan Alley composers and songwriters, composers, because they were songs. The Tin Pan Alley they were songs. Somehow, from 1908, if we go back and go forward to 1934, Take Me Out to the Ball Game becomes this anthem. I have no idea how. 1934, they sing it at this baseball game in Los Angeles. So Los Angeles, LA is the place that this originates, the song originates from. And somehow it got picked up to be this huge song. And then in that same year, 1934, they use it at the World Series game between the St. Louis Cardinals and Detroit Tigers. So again, it's another example of our city getting something started. But it really wasn't a regular occurrence until 1971 when, Harry Carey, the famous announcer, started singing it during the games, and he kind of got it really into this thing where it became this seventh inning stretch. And when you think of it, seventh inning stretch, and when you think of it's really odd in a way that you're with 50,000 people. There's this entertaining, sports game going on, and then you say, "Wait, hold on a second, stop the game and everything. We're all going to stand up. We're all going to sing." I mean, it's so old-fashioned. I mean, when you think of it, it's ridiculous. Like, why would that even? That's a waste of time. And there's something beautiful about it. I love that happens. And I do love the song. When I was singing it in my head, I was like, it really is a very nice song. But I kind of thought, well, this is like a great example of like an unintentional, spontaneous part of where we all become this choir unexpectedly. All of a sudden, everybody is singing along to this song. You have that in churches, of course, and Star Spangled Banner before concerts sometimes, but really, I don't know, in the middle, when it's involving something secular, I can't think of any other event where you would start singing, and it's very, it's you know, it's beautiful. I think it's a really cool thing. I mean, and it started out as this kind of obscure Tin Pan Alley vaudeville tune, but it really became this very charming part of the fabric of America and the Americana. I mean, it's like really, I don't know, I can't figure it out. Obviously, we know that Dodger Stadium has hosted many concerts too. Although I was surprised, since when it opened in '62 to now 2020, they've only had 95 concerts, which to me it sounds low. But you know, many of the top people in the world. I mean, the Beatles were the first band to do a huge concert that wasn't a sporting event, and that was a very famous time when they performed there, of course. But bands like The Cure, Kiss, the Rolling Stones, Bee Gees, Elton John, Simon and Garfunkel, Michael Jackson, the Eagles, Earth, Wind and Fire. There's too many. I mean, there's way more than that. I'm not going to name 95, but you get the idea that it's a huge place to celebrate and for music to take part outdoors in this city. And we're very lucky too that the stadium, we don't even need a roof here because the weather is so beautiful all the time, and there's been very few rainy days where they haven't been able to play, like in the history. Not even rainy days a year, like in the history of the park being open. So it's just gorgeous, and we're very lucky that it's right there, very close to downtown, yet in this, on this hill, and just beautiful things happening there. So I mentioned very briefly, but I did want to expand on it's Elysian Park is the same neighborhood as Dodger Stadium, and Elysian Park is a park and also its own neighborhood today. And I was researching that Elysian Park's the oldest park in Los Angeles, one of the oldest. Some people say it's the oldest, and it was not used. It was incorporated or dedicated in 1886, which is the same year MacArthur Park was dedicated. Pershing Square might be the first, because that goes to 1866, but it wasn't called Pershing Square until 1918. I did want to just mention that Elysian Park's one of the oldest parks there, and it was considered useless land for years and years and years, because really until the 50s, even though people were living there, useless by the politicians, because there was no way for them to make money unless there was development there. It's a terrible, horrible story of people that lost their homes, and just the government just, taking it. It was just like the Owens River Valley with Mulholland and Chandler and all those guys saying, let's just go steal that water. Some of these are really dark stories, and it's tough because, yeah, it's immoral, it's wrong, but then there's some good. I mean, Dodger Stadium's beautiful. We needed water in the city, so there's both sides. It's just we're not here for solutions. It's a tough one because we got a lot of good out of it. So Elysian Park, just wanted to kind of cap on a little bit of that. It also helps with the 1932 Olympics, so that was being used there. The Hippies and the Summer of Love music was there, and it's like second to Griffith Park, one of the biggest parks in LA. I think it's just second to that, yeah, and also the music tie-in was interesting. I think that having a choir sing, all of a sudden the whole city of LA, or at least 50,000 fans, just stop and stand up and sing. That's kind of cool. We should look at some flash. Maybe I'll show you some of those videos. My dad shared them with me, of just musicians gathered around and all of a sudden starting to play Bolero in the train station or something like that. It's a little bit like that, but this is like a community choir or something in the middle of nowhere, or in the middle of, a game going on, which it's silly, right? Okay, so hope you enjoyed Dodger Stadium, a little bit of Elysian Park add-on, and then tomorrow, Spider-Man. We already did Superman, I know. Okay, have a great rest of the day. See you tomorrow. Bye.